Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, The Future of Usability Testing and UX Research, an Executive's Perspective, presented by Alfonso de Nuez and hosted by Bestica. My name is Tammy Lozano, and my producer here is Ross Diaz. He and I will be moderating today's Bestica's third webinar. Many thanks to the team at Bestica and Mr. Harvinder Singh, our President and CEO, for inviting Alfonso to join us today. Bestica has strong ties to the UX recruiting community. Please feel free to reach out to our recruiters, Melanie, Carl, Kat. They're amazing at matching candidates with organizations. You can find them on our Bestica UX community or through LinkedIn. If you're an organization looking for a candidate, feel free to call, visit the Bestica website, or email our recruiters. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a couple of housekeeping items. You're listening into our webinar using your computer speaker system by default. You are all muted, but you will have the opportunity to submit questions to today's presenter by typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We will collect these and address them afterward. I would now like to say a little about Alfonso. Alfonso de Nuez, co-founder and CEO of UserZoom, an SaaS platform to rapidly test usability and measure UX, lives in Silicon Valley. Originally from Madrid, Spain, Alfonso has 18 years of experience in user experience, digital marketing, e-commerce, web design, web project management, user-centered design, and usability testing. Before founding UserZoom, he worked for companies such as Dell Computers, Icon Media Lab, now LBI Digitas, and Proxicom's venture in Spain, now Indra. He's a frequent speaker at UX conferences, has taught usability courses at various universities, and collaborates with the Stanford University Technology Ventures program. Let's now welcome Alfonso.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much, Tammy and Ross and Bestica, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and looking forward to this webinar. So, as we see here, the topic is the future of usability testing and UX research. And from an executive's perspective, so just really quick, I think there's tons of content out there about the future of UX. I really wanted to emphasize and focus this webinar on the testing and research aspect of UX. So this is not so much about design and about UX in general, but very specifically about testing and research. And also, it's my personal perspective, as it says right there, an executive's perspective. So I will be sharing some of the ideas, thoughts, and trends that I've been seeing throughout these years in my quite extensive experience. I've had the pleasure to go through many different times and stages of the UX world, and I think I have a very nice view of what's going to happen in this space. So with that, here's the agenda for today. I'll do a little bit, just very quick intro about myself and my experience. And then as I was doing some research for this particular webinar about usability testing, I found some nice curiosities about the history of usability testing, which I'll share with you. Then we'll talk about change in needs in recent times, in needs for research. And then we'll go into the future, which will be the main part of the presentation, and we'll leave about 10-15 minutes for Q&A. All right, so that's me on the screen. This picture was taken in Barcelona. We started the company out of Barcelona. I'm from Madrid, Spain, but lived here in California for about 14 years. I'm very passionate about design, or good design, especially these days. Everybody talks about design, and I'm so glad that we are in these times. We're living these times. I'm not a designer, and I'm not an engineer. I'm more of a marketeer. I went into business because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do back in school at San Jose State. But I did do a lot of marketing. I really was drawn towards marketing. And I think that, throughout my career, I've always believed that good UX is nothing but the best marketing you can ever do. And I think this is very much true today. I'm against what I call blah, blah, blah marketing, and I'm for producing the best experience possible as the best way to do marketing. Because the end user, consumers out there are much smarter than before, and you can't fool them with campaigns. You just have to have great design in place. So that's how I kind of view UX. And throughout my experience, my 18 years experience, I've had Icon Media Lab. That was in the late 90s, right before the dot-com bubble and all that. But we were already talking about HCI and human-computer interaction and usability and ergonomics. Experience Consulting was the consulting business I built. It was my first startup before UserZoom, and we were in the lab and doing eye tracking and a lot of testing and heuristic evaluation and things like that, and prototypes. And and it's kind of like what drew me and my co-founding partners to start UserZoom, to kind of go beyond the lab and take UX research to another level. And we'll talk a little bit about that later today. But this is a little bit of my experience. So let's start with Curiosities. Again, I did some research, and it was very interesting. Down here you can see the article. My good friend Jeff Soro from Measuring You has a nice article that I would invite you to see, because I personally didn't even know this. I know that usability, is not just the internet thing, but it's interesting to see that it was already a concept, and it was talked about it, and even applied during World War I for weapon assembly. That's kind of how Jeff thought that it was, I guess, the first time that it was ever used, usability testing and the concept. And then this is an interesting one right here, how this fridge had, usability as a main feature. As you can see down here, the usability was something that in 1936 a fridge had as a main feature. Really interesting stuff. And I'm just doing a little summary of Jeff's article, because there's a lot more of these curiosities and facts. Kind of the real starting point for this industry of usability testing in the 80s. I think this picture kind of tells you everything about the 80s. And so it kind of got real, with Apple and the computers and all that, the personal computer. And then you kind of fast forward over to the 90s and the 2000s, where we started seeing what Jeff calls maturity. And Jacob Nielsen kind of put it in the map. Steve Krug's super famous book of Don't Make Me Think. That's when web usability kind of became a very, very popular concept. And still, you could argue, based on my experience, it's changed dramatically today, and it's going to be even more in the near future, and we'll be talking about this later. But this is kind of like when we can say that it started to mature. But then we went through the bubble in the early 2000s, and then we went through some weird years during the 2000s, and then there was some change in needs, I guess, in terms of testing, in terms of really this thirst for understanding the consumer behavior, getting consumer feedback that we are living today, right? So in the recent times, there's been change, and I have a few slides here that kind of to use as evidence, right? So for example, the Usability Professional Association became the UX Professional or User Experience Professional Association. And I remember as if it was yesterday, when Carol Smith and the team at UPA, made a presentation about this, and it was a big deal. And it's a different focus because it was the change in needs, drove the UPA to change to focus on research, design, evaluation, and UX strategy. So that was interesting. Then to me, the other big thing was the introduction of the iPhone. It just put experience as a concept, UX. It just put it on the map even more. It was totally revolutionary. I mean, I don't think I have to talk much about the iPhone and how it's changed Apple and the whole iPhone. As he said, as Steve Jobs said, reinvented the phone. But I think what we can say is that reinvented the phone experience, right? And by the way, before I move on, Apple started getting some immense success with this experience. And so to me, the success of the iPhone and the success of the phone experience is to me what, because it was linked to financial results, because Apple started taking off financially thanks to the iPhone. It linked for the first time, and at least this is in my mind, it linked UX or great UX to financial results. And we're going to talk a little bit about this later and how this is impacting UX and UX research for today and for the future. The other factor and the other big thing that happened in the industry is that social media became huge. Now, what social media and also other services or websites like Twitter and Yelp, what it's done is that it's given the consumer this empowerment that the consumer had never had before. Now, providing or giving so much power to the consumer is really what it's all about, right? I mean, when you're doing testing, you're trying to test so that to ensure that your product is meeting the user's expectations. So if the user is empowered to go out and basically give a bad review like we see here on the screen, everybody's going to notice that. So you can't get away with bad design anymore. You need to test, right? So this is part of this changing needs that we're talking about. The other thing is that we've gone from just a few companies doing SaaS or cloud computing to everybody doing this. This is a SaaS economy. And again, everything is web-based, everything is multi-platform, you access everything online rather than on-premise. Before, software makers could get away with bad design because you would ship those CDs, it would be installed all over the place, and getting rid of that was just impossible, right? So the block of entry or the ability to be replaced was just minimal. But now you can simply just quit, open another tab, and use another vendor. It's as simple as that. That, again, empowers the user so much. You better test it. You better get it right because we're living in the cloud. Back to the point about financial results. So here is an interesting chart from the Watermark Consulting Group. UX is, or CX and UX, kind of like sister concepts, linked to financial performance and how the C-level executives are finally taking notice. This is really big for the future of UX, by the way. Customer experience leaders outperform the market, as we see here. Those that have spent money on or invested in good design and testing and research and being user-centered are outperforming those that are the laggards and are not doing well. This is key because in my experience, UX was always this nice to have or usability testing was this luxury. Do we really need it? I don't know. But now that we are linking this to financial performance, C-level guys see it, they get it, they value it. Guess what? They're going to pour resources into this, and that's exactly what's happening today, and will be happening a lot more in the future. I love these times that we're living in as a UX professional because I'm seeing companies that were normally, again, working on strategy and management consulting, like the McKinsey and Company guys, talking about design. This is a recent article, building a design-driven culture. This is September 15, and it's not enough to just sell a product or service. Companies must truly engage with their customers. Here's how how to embed experience design in your organization. This is a great article. You guys want to read it. But what's amazing is that McKinsey and Company is writing this and even coming up with design models like the braided design model here. To me, this is nothing but the user-centered design that we've been preaching and we've been talking about for a decade or more. You see here, validate, prototype, building, iterative design, prototype and test usability. Again, just awesome to see these changes in the market today and how it's going to impact and how it's impacting already, but it'll impact even more in the future. Now, what this means is that, and here's what we're seeing. Again, our companies, my last two startups, including UserZoom, have been around for over a decade. I'm seeing UXers busy as hell. Here in the Valley, for example, together with engineers, they're obviously the big rock stars, and they're really, really busy. This is what I've been hearing in the past years. They're really, really busy. Now, how can we help? How can these guys actually meet the demand? And not do what Jim Carrey is doing here, which is he's cheating the system and just telling everybody, yes, you can get your miracle. Love this movie, by the way. And how can we do this? Well, this is kind of like what we're getting into now with the future. Kind of the present already, but certainly will be mainstream, and the future is getting brighter and brighter. Now, what's happening is that you can employ more people. You certainly can, and UXers can be given a lot more authority and freedom to do stuff. But to me, there's this, for the future, we're looking at automation of testing. This is what we're seeing, and I think we will be seeing a lot more. I love this quote from Marc Andreessen. For those that don't know Marc Andreessen, he was the founder of Netscape back in the early 90s, and then today he's recognized as, Andreessen Horowitz is recognized as one of the most important and well-respected investors, venture capital companies in the world and in the Valley. And he has this thing: in short, software is eating the world. Now, what does he mean by this? I mean, there's just automation all over the place. What we're seeing with automation is that we have, first of all, we see a whole lot more testing being done now, and it'll be a lot more in the future. Again, usability testing was done once in a while. I remember the years of maybe a couple times a year or so. This wasn't that long ago, really. But now we're seeing a whole lot more testing. These guys that were really busy that I showed in the picture earlier, these UXers, are doing a lot more testing. I was in LA visiting a customer of ours recently, just a week ago. They're doing a usability test per week. This was very interesting to see. There's experimentation going on constantly. And this is because we're seeing what we call this user testing automation. Software helping automate the very tedious process of testing, of user testing. We see companies that were doing some testing before, now doing a whole lot more, and also we see companies that were never doing testing before, now they're doing it, and they'll be doing even more. User testing automation has enabled companies to scale their research. I remember PayPal telling me this a few years ago. We are scaling our research like crazy. We get all this demand, and we have to go global, and we have to test all over the United States, and we have plenty of customers, internal customers, and they were able to do more with less, thanks to the automation and how software is enabling them and helping them. And then last but not least, it's embedded in the design process, just like McKinsey was saying. But again, McKinsey is saying this in 2015. This is going to happen all over the place. You want to test early, you want to test often, you want to do it quickly, and you want to do it cost effectively, which is kind of like impossible to do if you do it in the lab, right? So we'll talk a little bit about that later. We've seen this already happen, by the way, in other industries. If we can compare ourselves in the UX space to the marketing space or even customer success lately, I think we've got a great case here. And again, guys, I mean, my perspective, I mean, UX was just literally, UX and usability was literally just a very small, always never-minded, and we always had to work really hard to get our point across. I don't see that anymore. I think the future of UX is extremely bright in that sense. And so we see that automation through software has happened in the CRM space, obviously with Salesforce. Marketing, we have Marketo, and it's amazing how Marketo enables us to be better marketeers and, again, do more with less, thanks to all the automation. And then within customer success, we've got companies like Gainsight, Totango, and Bluenose. These guys are also helping customer success professionals automate and just be more efficient with their time. Now, here is, obviously no one can really read this, but I would recommend you to also visit this blog, chiefmarketech.com. Here's the link down here. Now, this is something that, this chart has been around and has been updated every year for the past several years. What we're seeing here, and this is Scott Brinker who creates this, what we see is that software is eating the world of marketing technology. And if we consider UX and CX kind of like within this space, we are actually present there. I zoom in and I see in the optimization, personalization, and testing space, I see a lot of us out there. Sorry, this one is kind of out of the picture, but it should be over usability hub. We have ULoop 11, we have UserZoom, we have Userlytics, we have what users do, we have user testing, Validately, and probably there's a few more here that I don't see, but there's plenty of companies in the user testing, user experience testing, and there'll be more. So again, automation, software is going to be part of the future of UX testing, and what it's going to do is, in part, give a lot more freedom and time for the UX professionals. I like to talk about this kind of 80-20 rule. I'm not sure if this is totally accurate. It might be 60-40, it might be 70-30. I don't really care. My point with this is that I think we're going to be, I can see us spending, as humans, as people, spending 20% of our time, and 80% of the tasks, sorry, not 20% of the time, 20% of the tasks are done manually, and we have some of the design of the study and the design of the test, what is it that we're after. The robot is not going to know exactly what we want to test, and also we're going to spend our time analyzing and making and converting the data collected to intelligence, because the robot is not going to be able to, is not going to be intelligent enough, at least for the next few years, to do that for us. But 80% of the tasks should be done by the software. Whether it's collecting, whether it's organizing data, whether it's recruiting and just going out there and finding people. A lot of these things can be done today with technology, and so we want to see that happen. Even allowing you to schedule and launch automatically. So I actually saw this from a couple of days ago from the What Users Do newsletter. This is a company that does remote unmoderated testing. We'll speak about unmoderated and moderated and other methods in a second. But these guys are allowing you to schedule your tests to be launched automatically. So again, just helping you and enable you as a UX researcher to do your job more efficiently. If the stimulus is not ready, or if you want to wait and that maybe you want to launch it and then go and do other things, maybe work on a different study, or whatever it is, you can schedule and launch it automatically, so that you can basically again, just be more efficient and use your time more wisely. In general, we're seeing that we're getting away from this, obviously, from the lab, because it was all manual, very costly, and it kind of made things difficult. So in my experience, and personally, what I saw is that a lot of companies just didn't do or just didn't want to do usability testing. Only if you are sophisticated enough to have a lab, or you'd have to go and rent it or whatever. This just made it all extremely costly and time-consuming. Now, I'm not suggesting that we don't do this anymore. I think this is still going to be in the mix. It's extremely powerful to do one-on-one. It's just that whenever possible, you can avoid it with remote testing or other methods. And I think that in general, what we're going to see is that instead of meeting the customer once in a while, we're going to have the customer in the natural context, like, for example, like this lady at the beach. And continuously track and connect with the users. So that's what we were seeing here with this weekly tests and weekly experimentations that I was talking about with this other customer, and that I have in Los Angeles. Here's a picture of kind of like a landscape of user research methods by a good dear friend of mine, Christian Rohrer. And here's the link to this chart. But what I'm trying to say here is that a lot of these different, a lot of these methods are not the lab studies. They're not one-on-ones. They're not time-consuming. And a lot of these is where software comes in and can help a lot. This automation that I'm speaking about, right? So unmoderated panel studies, true intent studies, A/B testing is done through a lot of software, of course. Clickstream analysis, surveys. So a lot of it can. Some of these are one-on-ones, and I don't know how much can be automated. Maybe software can help a little bit, but in some others, you can actually automate a whole lot. Even eye tracking can be done through webcam. In the near future, webcams will have enough accuracy, although today is not accurate enough, in my personal opinion. But we'll get there. So eye tracking will be something that can also be part of remote testing. And here's where we're headed. We're headed towards fast, in the wild, real-time insights, feedback, and instant feedback and insights. This is where we're headed, and I love this picture because this cheetah kind of represents this future of UX research that I'm talking about. And this also kind of tells the story. It's also on the go. It's multi-device. It's contextual. Obviously, we see users using mobile more and more. So we need to be there where the users are. And software will enable you, again, this automation will enable you to do this in an easy way. And speaking of easy, I think what we're seeing here is two things. Software needs to get really easy to use. I think that even my own personal experience with UserZoom, we're working on this, making it all very easy. What it does, and what this automation does, is it's enabling a lot of other profiles that are not precisely, they might not be user experience researchers. They might not be professional, maybe a PhD or someone that has a lot of experience in testing. Now, we have to be careful about this because you can really screw up a usability test, right? But what I can see, and what I'm seeing, and I think what we'll be seeing in the future, is that you have designers, you have developers, you have product managers, you may have marketing professionals. There'll be a lot more convergence between the marketeers and kind of like the people that are doing web analytics and traffic analysis and A/B testing and customer experience management, and the user experience and usability professionals who are right now more in the design process. I think there's going to be a convergence in this in the future. I can already see it happening, and we're going to collaborate a lot more. But with this slide, what I'm trying to say is that software should make it easy for people to run user testing. And with that, you'll have, again, a lot more testing being done. And that's good. That's good. We have to be careful, but it's definitely good news. It's also a lot more cost effective. So if you can test on the go, if you can text in the right context, if you can gather insights precisely where the user is actually, normally located, and how they usually experience this. Like, for example, in their pajamas on Saturday morning, you definitely that's where you want to do it. But if software enables you to do that, and then the user doesn't have to travel. In some cases, as we saw earlier, you don't actually have to have a moderator there. Let the software actually take care of that, those 80% of the tasks. That results in cost savings and cost effectiveness. So I think what we're going to see is that you probably get, I'm seeing surveys out there that say that more budget is going to be allocated to usability testing and to user experience. So again, the C-level executives recognize and value this. However, not necessarily are they spending a whole lot more. I think a lot of companies are saving money and still doing a lot more research. So that's the new phase of UX research. This is a chart from Forrester Research about mobile and what I'm saying about the context. Where do you see the following device where do you use the following device to access the internet? And we see that the living room is the winner here, bedroom, the kitchen, even the bathroom, car, So my point here is, again, that UXers want to approach and want to test in the natural context where the end users are using their products. And so, the only way that you can do that today, because otherwise you're going to have to bring them to the lab or do it in person, it's really hard to follow. You need software to enable you to do this mobile testing. Now, I love this one right here because if we're going to do this much testing, if we're going to get help from software, and we see a lot of experimentation going on, guess what? We're going to have so much data, right? How do we manage this data? What if you do all these studies on a weekly basis, or even if it's a monthly basis? There's a lot of data collected, and you may want to go back and revisit, see, okay, so what did the users say in that study, or what were the results of this study here and there, right? So you have all this, potential need to go back and revisit. So Tom Sharon, someone also a friend of mine who has plenty of experience. He spent almost 10 years at Google doing some really cool stuff, and he's now working at WeWork. He just wrote this article, The Atomic Unit of Research Insight. He talks about 1,000 nuggets, pieces of information that he calls nuggets. And what he says is, if you can properly tag them and define them, then it can be easily searched and found. And this beats any report. So this is another thing of my view of the future of UX research and testing. We're not going to have reports. Okay, I think those PowerPoint reports, they're probably not going to be around for much longer. What we want to have is digital reports, and they're quick and small, and they tackle specific units of insights that we want to get out of these tests. But I don't think we're going to have a lot of reporting in the future. You're going to have real-time data, real-time decisions. A report may go into the hands of someone and then go into a meeting, and then that someone goes on vacation. Here and there, it's too late. We're in an agile world. So these properly tagged pieces of information beat any report. Guess what? Software enables you to do this. There is already software out there, and again, we're seeing more and more in the future. But there's features out there that enable you to tag specific moments like for example in a video clip or in a specific behavior, click path or whatever. If you want to capture that specifics, you can tag it, you can call it something specific, and then revisit it in the future. And we'll talk about this a little bit later, but it's about benchmarking. It's about usability and user experience benchmarking, measuring the user experience. Now, you need to have that tagged and properly defined in order to do something about it. Otherwise, there's just going to be too much data, and it's going to be a nightmare to manage. And this is kind of related to the previous concept, which is iterative testing. We're going to see much more of what we're seeing with this case study I was talking about earlier in LA, with this customer that is doing weekly tests. This is great. This is part of agile development. If you can make testing a standard within those agile sprints of 2 weeks or so, that's fantastic, because then again, this means we're going to be closer to the end consumer, and we're going to design based on the consumer, just like McKinsey and companies, those smart guys are telling you to do. I wanted to throw out this picture here. Again, speaking of all of this data and this nuggets, I don't think that you can do this today, but soon you'll be able to do some facial recognition. You'll be able to do remote eye tracking. The webcams and the chips within the phones and the computers and the laptops are getting more sophisticated, and so we'll be able to tell. Again, imagine you're in the 2-week sprint and you show something to a bunch of people. You show an interface, and you turn this on, and on that particular day you're already getting some feedback from users, and thanks to the automation of software, thanks to the automation you get with software, you'll be able to have this red alert to say this has produced a relatively negative perception or a happy perception, from the users. And you could actually, not only by hearing what they have to say and by observing their behavior, but also by observing the facial expressions, right? Again, software will automate all of this and will make it it will serve it to us on a silver platter, and say, and we as humans will go in and we'll turn that into intelligence. But what a great resource to have with us. Now we can do a lot more things also with software, and this is kind of like this hybrid of software and service. But a lot of customers our customers are already doing this. They're using customer councils. What are customer councils? Well, here's an article by Eunice Chang and Olivia Williamson from Autodesk. I think they wrote this about a couple years ago, or even less, in the UXPA magazine, and here's the link to it. But it's a research tool for agile development. And it says right here, the Customer Council is an online community of about 50 users, carefully selected based on experience and expertise. The idea here is that you can use these guys for collecting feedback, for going back to them. Not always do you need to use new user base or new samples. You can go back to this. Adobe has been applying this and using this for their products for years now. I just think that if you have this and software, and you have a nice platform put together, and you're a user experience researcher or user experience designer, and you have all these resources, again, all put together in a very cost-effective way, and software working with you, I think you've got just so many resources and so much power that will enable you to do research and testing, again, in a very cost-effective and complete way, and also to gather some quality insights. So I think this is part of the future, not only for large corporations but also for smaller corporations as well, or small SMBs and mid-level and mid-sized companies. This is another concept I really like, and how it's so important to have a collaborative process. And again, back to the point of the PowerPoint reports or deliverables. What you want is to have a collaboration between the user experience professional, the usability professional, and the other members of the team, and even management, product managers, developers. What we can do with software, again, is involve other people during the design process, and certainly collaborate and share the results. These nuggets that Tom Sharon was talking about, this is the kind of stuff that you want to share, and you want to do it quickly, because there's no time for big reports that end up in a trash can. You want to have the collaboration done through the interface of the whatever platform you're using to help you with the tests. So I think we're going to see in the future of user experience and usability testing, we're going to see a lot more collaboration between teams. And again, this is all going to be thanks to software. And then coming towards the end, guys, of the presentation here, if the C-level guys really care about UX, they're going to ask for something they can manage, and you can't manage without measuring, right? That's also something that the McKinsey and companies and the others will tell you. So you need to quantify things, you need to measure them. A test once in a while may help, but I think what we're seeing is that we can take it one step further and kind of have this UX score or user experience benchmark, and also be able to match it and compare it against the competitors. So kind of benchmark yourself and benchmark against competitors. Here's 3 books that I would highly recommend. Jeff Soro, Quantifying the User Experience, and then Tom Tallis and Bill Albert, who know all about this, about the concept of measuring UX, Tom Tallis out of Fidelity Investments, and Bill Albert heads the usability lab at Bentley University, and then Tomer Sharon, that I mentioned earlier, with his own book. So we're seeing, I think we're going to see, again, if we test and if we measure UX more and more, and we collect a lot more insights, we'll be in a place where it's cheap and it's cost effective to test. And what you want to have is, you want to have UX be, and this is again an executive's perspective, right? So as an executive, I know that the CMO today, and in the future, I mean, everybody wants to work for the CMO, for the Chief Marketing Officer. I'm seeing huge investments in in the enterprise, whether it's IBM, Oracle, SAP, Adobe. These guys are working for the CMO. The CMO is going to have the CMO dashboard, and we should have UX and usability be part of that dashboard. It'll be like, what is our experience? It's the same as NPS. NPS is Net Promoter Score. Satisfaction is nothing but a satisfaction measurement. They're making such a big deal out of this, and yet NPS is again nothing but, would you recommend this product to your families and friends, or whatever. UX goes and usability goes beyond that, right? Beyond the ranking, and so we want to have UX be part of that dashboard. Now, we're not going to get there unless we have, again, a lot more data, a lot more qualitative and quantitative measures. And I think we are on our way. We already have at UserZoom, we see a lot of demand for this, and we're going to see this more and more in the future, where you'll have a score and a way to continuously measure this, on a quarterly basis, perhaps on a monthly basis or whatever, and kind of match it with other metrics and be part of that CMO dashboard. I would love for that to happen. Obviously, again, I'm passionate about user experience, and I don't want to be left behind. So I think this is what's the future, what the future awaits for us. And last but not least, I spoke about enterprise. I mean, everybody wants to have a great user experience, but what we're seeing also is how the enterprise, again, companies that would get away or could get away in the past with bad UX and bad design, these guys are no longer able to do that. As Amanda Linden says here in this article, which I also recommend in the UX magazine, the future of enterprise design is consumer-grade UX. What does that mean? It means that even if you're doing more B2B, kind of like, boring stuff and applications for, let's say, travel agents or physicians or internets, whatever, you're not gonna be successful with a bad UX in those environments either. For an enterprise product to achieve the greatest success, companies should deliver an experience for users that meets the standards evident in consumer products. So it's not just Amazon and Apple, these consumer-facing UIs. Those are not the only ones that should have fantastic UX. It should also be enterprise applications that should do that. You know what? We're already seeing that. We're already seeing that the enterprises, again, kind of like, whoa, we better get this together. Whether it's, again, Microsoft, SAP, they're improving and they're pouring resources into UX. And I think we're going to see that in the future as well, as Amanda says here. And so, here's just a piece of that article. You can't rely on sales team for user growth. I actually love that one. If the UX is not good, they're not going to use you, and it doesn't matter how great your sales team, and it doesn't matter how great that customer success team is. You need great UX. Adoption in this scenario is organic, and users will ultimately be more loyal to your product than something they've been forced to use. And that's the thing, is that a lot of times the people that buy the software may not be the ones that or buy the application or whatever. There may not be the end users. So if the end users are not adopting it, you have a problem. Performance matters, of course, and because, again, cloud-based applications. So this is what I was saying earlier about the cloud. But I like this one also, is that the first experience that allows users to succeed on their own. You only have one shot at offering a great first experience, and so as explained in the free guide, the future of enterprise UX that she was writing, designers should also strive to create an application onboarding experience. Very much, I think, already in the present, but certainly much more of this in the future. And since I have about 1 to 2 minutes left, I want to go over to the takeaways. I just highlighted 6 of them, kind of summarizing the flow of the presentation today. The fact is, there's been usability testing, and usability as a concept has been around for a long, long time, as we saw in the article by Jeff Sora. It certainly matured once we got into the digital age, and users and consumers are interacting a lot more on their own with services and with companies and brands, whether it's on the computer or the mobile phone. And so definitely a lot more attention was put into it. As UX is evolving and becoming more of a competitive advantage, we see that it's being linked to financial performance. I think this number 4, as far as from an executive perspective, this is it right here. I think UX has been important since the beginning. Since the beginning of the World Wide Web, the beginning of the digital age. I don't care, but it's really when it becomes literally, a factor of success financially, that's when things change, and that's when the C-level guys get in, and the executives really care, even in the enterprise, and they are investing into this testing and measurement that you're going to see a lot more in the future. And then finally, again, the whole point of this future is this automation of the UX research, which is what I really wanted to focus on. It's going to help us be better UXers, be faster, be more cost-effective, and collect insights again on a pretty much on a real-time, daily basis, if not weekly, but obviously more often than it used to be. And I think with this, we're right on time, and we can move on to the Q&A session. So thank you very much for your attention, and I would love to take on some questions and do my best in answering them. Thank you.
Thank you, Alfonso. We now have a couple of questions, and just a reminder to everybody, you can submit your questions to the questions pane in your control panel. So here's the first question. You said that software is automating the data analysis and reporting process. Can you be more specific about how it's going about it?
Certainly. I'm specifically thinking of that article from Tomer Sharon about how when all this data is collected through software, instead of just going somewhere, it's being categorized. And so what we see is, let's imagine that we want to test the usability of an interface, a prototype, for example, and we have a series of tasks done by the researcher, which is how you measure usability, right? So you set up some tasks. Let's just say anywhere between 5 to 10, and you're collecting a lot of data. It could be you could be recording the screen. You could be collecting whether the users were able to complete a task successfully or not. You could be collecting time on task. You could be collecting through software. Again, we can also get a lot of behavioral data, like click paths. Maybe a specific moment when a user used a negative word, maybe something related to sentiment analysis, right? Well, the software applications are so powerful in categorizing this that they will automatically, you as a researcher, you will automatically be able to go in and say, again, just a few hours after launching the study, real time almost, you'll be able to go in and say, okay, can you show me task 5? Because it says here, this is a summary of the task. It says the task 5 was really problematic. There was a low success rate, among the users, and there was a lot of negative connotations, negative comments or whatever, right? So the negative sentiment. Software will do this for you automatically, and so you'll see like a dashboard of the results. You see that you can filter. Okay, let me focus on task 5, and you just pick 5 or task 5, and you pick the software will automatically reorganize the data, the videos or the comments or whatever, only on that specific task 5, and you'll be able to just focus on what happened. So instead of watching or having to review all those videos or go through reviewing all the results, you can go directly and spend just a few minutes on something specific that happened, right? So that's how software can help you just be a lot more effective and efficient with your time, with all the data that you'll be collecting. And of course, there's also the fact that you can have all this in a repository, like let's say, somewhere under your login and password on your account. And if you go and search, just like Google helps you with Gmail search, or G Drive, if you have all this properly tagged, you can do a simple search and say, okay, when user said not easy, or when user said bad design, or when users used any of this negative, I'm just making it up right now, but there may be some specifics. You can basically search, and it'll take you to a specific moment on that video clip where they actually mentioned that. That's how software enables you to basically automate the process of data analysis.
Okay, we have another question here. One of the most difficult tasks my team faces is recruiting or finding the right participants to participate in our studies. It's also quite expensive to attract people to do it. How does the software platform help with this?
Yeah, this takes me to the customer councils and the solutions around it. But yeah, recruiting is definitely the biggest pain in the butt for everybody because you have to find those guys. And you know, I've seen the evolution of recruiting. You know, out there. There's a lot of panel vendors, but there's also potentially situations where brands want to test their own panel, their own people, their own samples. You know, today you have, again, software is not just about the testing and the analysis and the data, but there's also software that enables you to find those guys, right? So there is a lot of the testing solutions out there and research solutions already give you this access to the database that you can pick yourself. You can just go in there and select specific panel groups. The software enables you to know not only to find them, but also know who participated, when, and even kind of rank a specific user. You know, if you feel like that's a user in your community that you may want to go back to. All of this is again enabled through software. There's also a way for software to enable you to intercept and help or invite a real visitor, a potential visitor, a potential consumer or a customer, sorry, that visits your website. You can have this software applications kind of recruit for you and put them, add these visitors to a database where you can invite them to do studies and continuously participate, kind of like as we see here in the customer consoles. So yes, software, even though I consider that kind of like a software slash service, but there are software solutions out there that can be already can be part of the platform. It can be part of your toolkit to help you find those participants and manage your own community.
Okay, Alfonso, I have one last question here. And the question is being asked, in your opinion, how is automated user testing different from automated functionality testing?
Oh, yes, actually, what's interesting is that user testing, or actually, you know, testing has plenty of different types of tests. There's bug testing, there's quality testing, functionality testing, performance testing, usability testing. Functionality test is about whether a feature or whether something you can do actually is interesting or not, whether is it something that you want to add to your product because it's going to be used quite a bit. Usability testing is more about whether that functionality is user-friendly or not, or if it's actually working. So it's a very subtle difference, you know. But the fact is, you may want to add a feature or you may not. And then once you add the feature, is it usable and is it actually, you know, improving the experience or not? It's two different things, and I think that you don't want to confuse them, right? That's why going back to these methods here. Sorry, where is the slide from Christian? Let me see if I can find it. Here, you know, you may be at a qualitative stage here and kind of understand if you need a functionality, if a feature is interesting or not, and if it's actually something you need. For example, a functionality would be, you know, to be able to filter the results or something, right? But then once you're more in the design and you're trying to understand if this functionality is being used or not, if it's actually user friendly, and if it's actually being used within a specific task or a specific process, that's when you get into the more of the usability studies over here. So it's a subtle difference, but testing to me testing both would be overall part of the overall experience testing. You want to understand if a functionality is needed or not, and you want to understand if the functionality works. That's kind of how I see the difference. Yes.
I was going to say we have another question, and the question the attendee asks, have you had to deal with a situation where marketing and designs were at odds with each other? If so, how did you resolve that situation?
Great question. Dear topic for me, because as I said at the very beginning, and let me take this back to the beginning here, to me, UX, good UX is the best marketing. I think the first thing is that we as UXers need to educate marketeers. I kind of take that as for granted. So we need to collaborate more. We need to help them see that they'll be better marketeers if they work together with you as a UXer. So when they were at conflicts, how did we resolve it? I mean, sometimes you may have a conflict where you have marketing trying to promote something really heavily and push a product, but here's an example I would use to kind of answer this question. And I see this in my own company, right? At UserZoom, we want to promote something, but you know what? If the product, let's say that you get a lot of traffic to your website, or to your, you want to promote something and get a lot of adoption. I think the best way to resolve it is showing them those conversion ratios from a usability perspective. If marketing really wants to push something, or they want to make it a very beautiful, but it's not so user-friendly, show them the conversion ratios. Show them that if they had usability, it's like almost like a company, like scaling a business. You don't want to put too much gasoline on sales and marketing before your product is ready, right? Well, tell marketeers you don't want to promote and do a campaign or push something before your product is producing a great UX, and usability is part of that UX. So at the end, they're going to say, well, yeah, of course, because the fact is that marketing conversion, the quality of the marketing campaign is going to be based on the quality of the usability and the experience. So talk to them as we're all in the same team, and we want to get the best results. But you don't want to put gasoline until the product is ready. That's one of the ways I would answer. I would resolve a conflict like that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Alfonso, and thanks everyone for attending today's webinar, The Future of Usability Testing and UX Research in Executive's Perspective. Now, once you leave today's webinar, you will receive a survey on the presentation, and we would appreciate it if you would provide your feedback. You will also receive a follow-up email with a link to view a recording of today's webinar. Now, if you want to be considered as a speaker for a future webinar, please send your information and at least 3 potential topics. And on behalf of Bestica and our presenter, Alfonso, we're just really pleased, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, guys. It's been my pleasure, and I really appreciate you guys inviting me.
Okay, everyone, that is the end of our webinar, and once again, thank you for attending, and keep an eye out on the Bestica community for more webinar information. All right, have a great day.
Thank you. Have a good one.